Many Lives, Many Masters, Chapter 2. 18 months of intensive psychotherapy passed, with Catherine coming to see me once or twice a week. She was a good patient, verbal, capable of insights, and extremely eager to get well. During that time, we explored her feelings, thoughts, and dreams. Her recognition of recurrent behavior patterns. So she was aware that she kept behaving the same way and there was like a pattern to them. Provided her with insight and understanding. So she was starting to understand herself better and all the phobias she had. She remembered many more significant details from her past, such as her merchant seaman's father's absences. So he worked on the ocean, out on a boat, so he was gone for long periods of time from the home, and his occasional violent outbursts after drinking too much. She understood much more about her turbulent relationship with Stuart, and she expressed anger more appropriately. I felt that she should have been much improved by now. Patients almost always improve when they remember unpleasant influences from their past, when they learn to recognize and correct uh, behavior patterns that are unhealthy. That word is maladaptive. And when they develop insight and view their problem from a larger, more detached perspective. But Catherine had not improved. So basically, what he's saying there is, she looked at her past and her childhood, and she also saw how there were things in her life, choices she was making, and things she was doing that were unhealthy for her. And she was able to view it from a more like kind of medical perspective, but she still was not getting better. Anxiety and panic attacks still tortured her. The vivid, recurrent nightmares continued, and she was still terrified of the dark, of water, and of being closed in. Her sleep was still fragmented and unrefreshing. So she would go to sleep, but she would wake up, and then she'd fall back to sleep again, but then she'd wake up, she couldn't get back to sleep. So she never felt well in the morning. She was experiencing heart palpitations, so her heart would start really racing really fast, and she would get tense. She continued to refuse any medicines, afraid of choking on the pills. I felt as if I had reached a wall, and no matter what I did, that wall would remain so high that neither of us would be able to climb over it. But with my sense of frustration came an added sense of determination. Somehow I was going to help Catherine. So he didn't know what more else he could do, but he was determined to find a way. And then a strange thing happened. Although she was intensely afraid of flying and had to fortify herself with several drinks while she was on the plane, Catherine accompanied Stuart to a medical conference in Chicago in the spring of 1982. While there, she pressured him into visiting the Egyptian exhibit at the Art Museum, where they joined a guided tour. So all of a sudden she was able to fly, and they went to this tour of an art museum with Egyptian things. Catherine had always had an interest in ancient Egyptian artifacts and reproductions of relics from that period. She was hardly a scholar and had never studied that time in history, but somehow pieces seemed familiar to her. When the guy began to describe some of the artifacts in the exhibit, she found herself correcting him. And she was right. The guide was surprised. Catherine was stunned. How did she know these things? Why did she feel so strongly that she was right? So sure of herself that she corrected the guide in public. Perhaps the memories were forgotten from her childhood. So she always had an interest in Egyptian art, but she never studied it. And here was the guy giving the tour that really knew the information. And she was all of a sudden just blurting out, no, it should be used for this, or whatever it was. But she was correcting him. And she was right. He was like, "Oh, you're right." But she had no idea how she knew all of this about the old Egyptian artifacts. At her next appointment, she told me what had happened. Months earlier, I had suggested hypnosis to Catherine, but she was afraid and she resisted. Because of her experience at the Egyptian exhibit, she now reluctantly agreed. Hypnosis is an excellent tool to help a patient remember long forgotten incidents. There is nothing mysterious about it, it is just a state of focused concentration. Under the instruction of a trained hypnotist, the patient body relaxes, causing the memory to sharpen. I had hypnotized hundreds of patients and had found it helpful in reducing anxiety, eliminating phobias, changing bad habits, and aiding in the recall of repressed material. On occasion, I have been successful in regressing patients back to their early childhoods, even to when they were 2 or 3 years old, thus eliciting memories of long forgotten traumas that were disrupting their lives. I felt confident that hypnosis would help Catherine. So he used hypnosis, which is just really relaxing their body and pulling out memories to help them remember memories they wouldn't have unless they were under hypnosis.